This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Do you hear that whisper? That little voice that tugs at your heart, telling you to start living your best life. If that sounds like you, then now is the time to join Nectar Growth. It's the only place online where you can connect with and learn from great coaches with different areas of expertise. Why live another day not believing that you're enough, not seeing all that is possible for you? Why live another day dimming your own light? Nectar is the perfect place for you to discover the real you and uncover who you're meant to be. Life is a journey that we are not meant to walk alone. Nectar gives you a nurturing and supportive community to walk with you on your journey. Start living your best life and see what is truly possible. Come join us at nectargrowth.com. You know you're worth it.
Ride.
Many of us hinge our happiness on future events and reaching certain milestones. But true happiness comes from enjoying life exactly where you are. Life is a roller coaster. We have to embrace the highs and the lows. Joining me today is JM Ryerson, author of Let's Go Win and host of the Let's Go Win podcast, to share the keys to living your best life. Welcome to the roller coaster, JM.
I'm excited to be on it, man. I appreciate it, Lucy, and this should be a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to touch on what your story is behind exploring living your best life, because for myself, I didn't even consider it until I hit rock bottom.
Well, I was inspired by my kids. I have two boys. They're 15 and 12 now. And if you think of it as a parent, you always want your kids to have a better life than you had. I mean, that's the basic premise of being a parent, in my opinion. And I had an incredible life. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't change pretty much anything other than I want my kids to have it that much better, just a little bit better. And so the whole idea with Let's Go Win, the first book, was, hey, let's write something that shows them all these lessons that have been learned from my parents, grandparents, mentors, authors. I like to read a lot. Throw it all into one book. So if my kids were to jump on a plane, or anyone in this case, jump on a plane in LA, land in New York, they can read the whole thing and walk away with like tangible takeaways. So that was the whole start of what Let's Go Win was all about. Is I just wanted them to not skin their knees maybe as much as I did. Now, will that happen? I don't know, but it was an interesting road to actually write the book because it took me much longer than I anticipated. In fact, my 8-year-old at the time said, "Hey, Dad, how's the book coming?" Because it was on my bathroom mirrors on goals for years. And I had to look at him and I had to be honest. I was like, I literally have a little bit of chapter 1 done. That day I was destroyed and motivated and inspired all in the same moment, and finished the book. Decided the gal I was working with said, you need to share this with more than just those two human beings. And it's just led to so many cool things. So that's where the impetus of what Let's Go Win is all about. And it's grown, and it's been such a just cool, awesome roller coaster ride. I love the name of your podcast. It truly has been an awesome roller coaster ride.
And as a mother of two sons as well, our kids are now 19 and 22. I can completely relate to wanting to give them a better life. But my story is that, the start of my life was somewhat shitty. I wanted to give them something completely different. And, that started, I was able to start giving it to them before I was able to start giving it to myself. I think, speaking as a woman, we always tend to put ourselves last on the list. And, it took me a lot longer to clue in that I have to start doing this for myself as well.
What you said is so true. Almost virtually, and I'm generalizing, but virtually all of my female clients are exactly what you just said. And I have had to teach them, like, look, the most selfish thing you can do is operate the way you are right now, because you're not going to be around long term. If you don't literally take care of yourself first, you can't take care of those beautiful babies, as I'm sure you learned. So I love that you discovered that, Lucy. It allows you to do what you're doing now and show up in this amazing way. But traditionally, females have always taken care of everyone else first and then themselves. And it's such a selfish act. If you can flip that, if anyone hearing, if one person hears that, I hope they change their behavior, because it's a radical shift, but it's what needs to happen.
Definitely. And I think, you said that we take care of ourselves last, but all too often we never take care of ourselves.
Mm.
It's just never done, because you reach the end of the day and, you got to go to sleep and start all over again.
Oh, it's so true. It's literally it. I mean, we're going down the second book that I wrote. I mean, it's literally set up for this, because you're absolutely right. So often I've met people that have made ridiculous amounts of money they can never, ever, ever spend. And unfortunately, because they don't take care of themselves, they never get to, they don't even have a chance. So they bust their ass this entire time, build this remarkable life for so many human beings, but they forgot about their health. They forgot about their relationships. And whether it be death by suicide or by literally health challenges, I cannot tell you how many times that story has been told, and it drives me nuts. So I totally agree with you. Like, look, take care of yourself first. I love the theme of what we're going with, because it's so true.
And, it's something that I've tried to teach our sons. I've been very, since I started going through the self-exploration process and that journey of self-improvement, it started, about 5 years ago. I have been sharing so many details with our kids so that they understand why I do what I do, or why I did what I did, and they can learn from it and start to build it into their lives. And for us, one of the things we've been teaching them, and I think it's key in, living your best life, is understanding what you truly love to do. And then not necessarily thinking of a job, but potentially what we call revenue streams.
Oh, absolutely. Well, even before we got on camera, we were talking about where we lived, and it was like, oh, we'll look at maybe going to a warmer climate. You know what I'd say? Go. If that's of interest, if that is something that you want, don't wait. You know how often people on their deathbed, the biggest regret they have is, I should have acted on what I really wanted. And I'm sure you've told your boys, look, get quiet, go away from the TV and the phones and mom and dad and everybody. Go spend time with yourself and figure out what the hell you really want. Once you do that, it's amazing. Life becomes really easy. It's really not complicated. But somewhere along the way, we were conditioned that I have to get this job and it has to look this way, and I'm going to compromise and compromise. It's like, forget all that. Why don't you just go for what you want to do? And then it's amazing. The abundance, prosperity, everything jumps out at you. But if you sit there and just do what everyone else told you, that is literally a very, very miserable existence. And unfortunately, there's so many people that are and have gone through that process. So congrats to you on discovering what you're doing. I think it's amazing.
And I think what you're referring to by doing those things that we're told to do, it's what we talk about on the podcast, is, that dreaded checklist. Mm. All these things that society expects us to do. And in some way, society lies to us by saying, by doing these things, you're going to find happiness, or they will make you happy. And then you realize you've checked all these boxes and you're anything but happy.
Let's just take the traditional school for a moment. Do you ever remember class where they're like, Lucy, let's figure out what's going to make you happy? Do you ever once remember that ever happening?
Not at all.
Of course not. But I believe human beings are on this earth for 3 reasons. One is fun. Literally, one is fun, one is love, and one is purpose. But at no point are we taught any of that stuff in the traditional schooling. And so often, even as parents, we're trying to put them in bumpers and we're trying to make sure it looks a certain way. Look, it's problematic. And I'm not saying, look, you need to have some form of discipline. I get that. But let your kids explore. Let yourself explore what you really want. Because if you haven't tried, how do you know you don't want to be a painter if you've never painted? How do you know you don't want to be a pilot if you've never flown a plane? You don't know these things. And so often we just follow down this path, and some fears or anxieties from our parents or our teachers or whomever we get it from, and we adopt that. That's all bullshit. It literally is just conditioning. So if you can break that to a degree and say, look, I'm going to get what I need, the schooling, I'm going to get the socialization, but I'm also going to discover what I really want. If we can do more of that, it's amazing when people find, like you're talking about, there's this light that burns that much brighter. And then that starts to grow because everyone else is becoming more positive. Now they're doing what they love. And when you are happy, it's amazing how much less hurt there is. And I have a saying, it's literally hurt people hurt people. That means if you're hurting, you're going to hurt other people. That's just the way it works. But if you're happy, you want to push that on to other people. You want other people to join in. It's like going to a great party. It's like, hey, man, come on in. But if you're being a jerk coming through the door, maybe there's the other back door for you. We want happy people at this party.
I literally did a podcast a few weeks ago called Hurt People, Hurt People. And I talked about something that had happened, a family member, what they had done and how they had reacted to me. And, my comment was, well, hurt people hurt people. That's just what happens. They want to drag other people down into their pit of misery. And that's when you see, the other saying, my kids use this all the time, is haters gonna hate. Because when they see, when people see you living your best life, well, that's when they start picking at you.
Oh, so true. Yeah. If you ever want to disarm somebody you really love, just say that. Be like, hey, I'm so sorry you feel that way towards me. And I realize that hurt people hurt people. If you ever want to stop somebody really in their tracks, say that thing. And it's amazing how they'll be like, it makes them stop and think. They're not mad at you. They're mad at themselves. And they're projecting that onto you. They want to bring you to that pit of hell with them. But the truth is they're just hurting. So if you can say, hey, man, I just want to give you a hug. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry whatever I've done is causing you that pain. Let's see if we can figure it out.
That's definitely an interesting approach. Definitely.
It's not easy, right? Because
no, it's not.
Emotions are high, right?
And I'm thinking about the conversation that I had with this person. And I said, I didn't say hurt people, but I said, I empathize everything that you've been through to make you think this way. It didn't go so well. So we'll just leave that there. But again, that's their own pain and trauma coming to the surface. And one of the things we have to do is you have to be able to be big enough so you can separate yourself from that toxicity, because you can acknowledge and empathize with somebody, but that doesn't mean you have to put up with it.
Oh, 100%. Set your boundaries. I mean, you want to get on to one of my favorite topics. That is literally setting boundaries. That is making sure, look, I love you, but you're always being toxic. You're always bringing negativity. I will always love you, but it will be from afar. You are not welcome into it. Let's say you're home. Let's say it's somebody you were really close with, your brother, sister, mom, dad, it doesn't matter, but they are constantly bringing drama or negativity. You have a right to say no. You are not allowed in, especially your home, because that is the most intimate, safe place. Or it's supposed to be. And once you learn that, it's amazing how you have at least one sanctuary, one place to go home to. And truly, I mean, I say home, you should be able to go home and never have that. So it's such an important lesson that I teach myself this all the time, again and again and again. Set those boundaries. It's okay. That allows you to show up as your best version of yourself. Really hard to, if you're constantly being dragged down, because people do two things. They either lift you up or they bring you down. I do not believe there's a middle road, kind of like your roller coaster. They're either lifting you up or they're taking you down. You don't see roller coasters like this. So your show is literally
it's called a train.
Yeah, that's a train. That's exactly right. Trains are, well, for the most part, boring. So anyway.
Yeah. And, I think it's important to acknowledge that people may come into our lives and, as the saying goes, you can't pick your family, but that doesn't mean that you have to remain in the presence of people that bring that toxicity into your life.
Yeah. And I know that's easier said than done, but it's so true. Like you get to choose. And sometimes, so often, especially as parents, I would never choose to have somebody be toxic around my children. Therefore, that's where people are taking care of other people. Again, going back, take care of yourself first. Make sure that even though they're toxic, even though they raised you or whatever it is, and my parents are wonderful, so I'm not talking about them, but family members that I do have, I've had to set those boundaries. I'll always love you, but it will be from afar. We may never speak again, but I love you. It's just, I can't have you in my life at this point.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great tool for, articulating how to set those boundaries, because I think that's a very difficult conversation to have. And to be able to have that very clear and concise statement, I think will make it a lot easier for people to communicate that when they're dealing with those tough people in their lives.
Well, and as long as you don't label them, as long as you don't say, hey, you are an asshole, therefore, it's like, no, this is my choice because I didn't call you anything, because of circumstance, because of actions. I'm not labeling you as anything. These actions are leading me to this decision. Now, you could earn your way back into this home by showing different actions. But again, if you don't label them, if you just say, this is my boundary, they won't take such offense. And in fact, they'll be like, oh, it's a weight off my shoulders. I'm not an asshole. In fact, you know what? JM's crazy. He's the asshole because he's not letting me in his home. Cool. But I've accomplished the same goal.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're protecting yourself. You're putting yourself first.
Oh.
So when we look at living your best life, for somebody that's questioning if they are, or haven't even considered if they're living their best life, what are some of those signs that can help people clue into, wait a second, maybe I need to make some adjustments and pivot here?
I mean, the biggest thing is, how do you wake up every day? Are you excited? Are you literally like, yes, I get to go do this? Yes. And I'm not saying every day. Everybody has good days and bad days. And I don't care, the most positive human being in the world, they have bad days, but they make choices. And they're like, if that is making me feel this way, I'm going to choose something different. So I literally start there, which is, how do you feel? Are you excited? Do you really want to go be around your loved ones? Do you want to go to work? Do you want to, whatever that is? And if you're not, you're probably not living your best life. That's just the reality. But here's the great news. You get to choose to make it better. You get to choose to make it different. It is never too late. I don't know your age, Lucy, but you said 5 years ago, you're like, hey, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to make it that much better. I'm going to discover myself. And here's the great news. It's never too late, because I do believe we are doing two things. We are either growing or we're dying. So if you feel like you're dying, let's try something new. Let's discover what I really want to have. So just cluing in with yourself a little bit. And again, I do it through meditation and journaling. That's kind of my daily rituals that help me check in. And I also have a work-life balance thing that I always do once a month. But if I'm off, let's say I've been grinding on a book and I haven't been outside, which has happened, I know that I need to go do something for hobby, because now I'm not showing up as the best parent, as the best spouse, as the best maybe writer, because I've literally grinded myself. And if you grind and grind and grind, that turns and erodes into nothing. So maybe I need to go golf, fish, hunt, whatever your thing is. And if you check in on those things and say, what area of life is off balance? Okay, my relationship's off balance. Let's put some real focus effort on that. So it's just checking in with yourself and asking, how am I feeling? Does it feel good, bad, or indifferent? And be honest with yourself. It's okay if it feels bad. You get to choose to make it better.
And I think that's what we forget, is that we do have the power of choice. And when we introduce modalities, as you mentioned, meditation and journaling, two things I'm very, very big on, it shifts you to be an observer so that you can see, wait a second, I'm getting cranky here because I've been sitting at my desk for 8 hours. I probably haven't eaten. I just need to go outside and be in the fresh air. Those things that we give ourselves, those are the gifts that they give us in return, because it allows us to be better observers in our life and pinpoint when we do have to make changes, whether it's just, I need to get up from my desk, or wait a second, this is no longer working, I need to make a change.
Oh, it's so true. And you're talking about some real self-awareness. When you get to quiet the mind, you really get to know how you show up in the world. And if there's one big change when it comes to meditation, and this, my mom would be a great example. If she listens to this, she'll be chuckling, because she would always be like, I can't meditate. And I'm like, Mom, everyone can meditate. Everyone. It doesn't mean you're good, bad, or indifferent. The most enlightened monk at some point did it for the first time. That's just the way it works. And so I just changed one word, and that is, I get to meditate. I get to journal. Think of anything you get to do. Somebody that is dying or dead that is no longer able to, just change your perspective. I get the chance to discover me today. That's amazing. I know my brother-in-law, so I have my 7 daily reminders on my mirror. My brother-in-law, it says, keep perspective, and it has in parentheses, Dick Fong. Well, Dick Fong was my brother-in-law that passed away at 48 years old of esophageal cancer. Every problem, challenge, wonderful thing that happens, anything in my life, I get to do that. He doesn't have that opportunity with his 3 girls. And if you can flip it and say, I got a flat tire this morning. I did. I literally got a flat tire this morning. I got to have a flat tire. If you just think of it differently, it's like, I could be dead. I could not be here, but I got to have a flat tire. And then I got to meet a really nice gentleman that helped me, because apparently Teslas don't have spare tires. I met a gentleman that got to, and he was a really amazing human being. So I got to connect with somebody I never would have had I not had the flat tire. And if you can just change your perspective on anything negative that comes your way and say, I get to experience this. You're still alive. You're still breathing. You're feeling those emotions. Those are good things.
Definitely. And on the going back to what you said about meditation, and how your mother said she can't meditate, I think what people have to understand is there's 1,000 different ways to meditate, and there's always, you've just got to find what's right for you. But I think people think that they have to sit there and have absolutely no thoughts in their mind. And I recently heard a quote, and it was on that topic, and they basically said, a mind without thought is like a pillow without feathers. It's useless. And that's just acknowledging you're always going to have those thoughts, but it's how do you channel your focus so that you can find that stillness.
Oh, so true. I mean, look, we have 50 to 70,000 thoughts per day. You're not going to stop that. However, when you get really good at meditation, quote unquote, you just recognize, oh, there's a thought, and you gently push it away. Or sometimes you sit on that thought. Why is this coming up? What's the world trying to tell me? What's the universe trying to tell me? Something is happening here. Hear it. And that's okay. It could be the nastiest thing. That's the other thing. And meditation allows you to see these things. Now, let's say you figured something out, or a thought just keeps coming up and it's scary because let's say it's the nastiest thing you can think of. I mean, it's just really evil. You don't want anybody to know this. Write about it. Because guess what? You have literally created something in your mind. Did you actually do it? Probably not. It's just something that's going through. And then when you write it down, you'll be like, okay, that's crazy. Or, okay, maybe I should look at this. Or, okay, no, it wasn't that big a deal. But our minds are so creative. And so it's amazing when you stop to think and you stop to even meditate. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I do have these amazing thoughts. I do have really creative juices going, or really crazy stories going. That's okay. We all do. And once you realize that everybody is going through the same thing, we are all the same journey on this earth, different DNA, but we have these crazy thoughts. Don't think you're alone. It makes it that much more comforting to say, hey, what if I sit with it for a second? Oh, there's something really cool that came out of this.
And writing down the thoughts in your head and getting them down on paper, I want to say it's almost like freeing them from your mind. You're creating space in your head again, because you tend not to, if it's just in your head, you keep going over and over and over it. But once you sort of put it on paper and you're letting your thoughts around it flow, it's almost, you sort of release them in a sense. You still may like tinker over them in your mind, but you do, you start to release them. And as you sort of explore your feelings surrounding it, you can just let go.
No, it's so true. You literally said the word that it's so accurate. You release it, right? And there's other exercises. You can literally write it down. Let's say something's really scary, write it down, and then you shred it, right? Releasing it even more. Or there's an exercise where you write it down and then you burn it and it all goes up. And the whole point is what you said, you're so accurate. Get that stuff out of you. If it's scary inside here, get it the heck out. Now, the beautiful thing about that piece of paper, it will never judge you. I've never had a paper say, you're crazy. You are amazing. It doesn't say anything. It is the most non-judgmental thing, better than even a therapist, arguably, right? Now, if you need somebody to talk back to you, it doesn't work so well, but it won't judge you. It never has.
Yeah, so true. So true. JM, as we wrap up here, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think the biggest thing I would tell anybody, especially with what we talked about, and it's really finding your authentic self, because somewhere along the line, we change, we morph, we want to conform or fit in. Find who you really are, because it is so much less energy that you have to spend if you just find who that authentic person is. And I know that word gets used a lot, but here's the biggest analogy I'll use. We put on masks, and I think it starts at about 5th grade, 6th grade, I don't know, somewhere in there, where we start to really change and we want to fit in. And then we start putting on masks to look a certain way. Masks are for parties. They are not for everyday life. Take that stuff off, because think of how, if you put a mask over a mask over a mask and you have thousands, how heavy is that? That is literally wearing your ass down. Take it off and let you flourish. It's amazing what the world how it receives you when you are truly yourself. That would be my last thing. I want everybody to go win. There's a reason I named the company Let's Go Win, because it is all about everybody out there. I want people to be inspired to live their best lives. And so that would be my last advice.
Great advice, JM. And where is the best place for people to connect, get a copy of your book, and listen to your podcast?
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Let'sgowin.com for any of the stuff. There's a free work-life balance assessment on there. Literally, guys, go use it. I use it once a month just to check in. Even though I wrote that, I'm like, yep, better check in on that. And you can get the books on there and anything else that's available. And then Let's Go Win podcast. That's on anything, Apple and Spotify and all that stuff. And I would love if anybody listens to it, just hit me up. Let's Go Win 365 is what all our social media is. Hit me up. Let me know. Hey, this was awesome. That was terrible. I literally receive all the feedback because my goal is to show up as my best self, and you guys can help me do that. So that's where they can find me. And Lucy, thank you. This was awesome. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. To connect with JM, make sure you check out the show notes. I will have all of the links in there. And JM, thank you so much for joining me today.
Truly my pleasure. It was amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.